Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. I hereby command you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you in my victorious right hand. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. The divine masculine power of spiritual strength. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Today is the day that we honor our father and father figures. And similar to how Reverend Dan looked at the divine feminine power of wisdom on Mother's Day, I'm going to look at the divine masculine power of strength today. Now, strength is one of the 12 powers, which Reverend Dan did talk about in March. So we will revisit it in the light of the divine masculine. So according to Charles Fillmore in his book, The 12 Powers of Man, this is in the library if you want to check it out. It's a great classic book on the 12 powers. So he tells us that strength is stability, steadfastness, and that the disciple Andrew represents strength in the Bible. And he reminds us that this power of strength, though it's the divine masculine, is within every male and female, and that we all can tap into that power. He tells us that to be steadfast, strong, steady in thought, and we will establish that strength in both the mind and the body. And that we should never let the thought of weakness enter into our consciousness, but always ignore the suggestion and affirm ourselves to be a tower of strength, both within and without. Now, for a more modern understanding of the 12 powers, I recommend this book here. It's called Adventures in Resilience, Ignite the 12 Powers in You to Create a Radiant Life by Unity Minister Sharon Connors. And this is in the library as well. I donated this copy, so anybody who wants to check it out for a more modern understanding of the 12 powers, I recommend this book. I didn't know anything about Reverend Sharon until I checked out her book, Adventures in Prayer, from the library. So I'm so grateful for the Unity Library. As you can see, I've always loved the library as a young child, so I was so happy when our library was revamped, and my goal is to read every book in there. Anyone want to join me? So Reverend Sharon Connors tells us in the book that spiritual strength is a power that trumps fear and empowers you to take right action in the face of fear, loss, anger, rejection, disappointment, delay, and disapproval. She tells us that spiritual strength is a spiritual muscle and more, and it is our spiritual backbone. So I recommend you get this book. It's in the library. So why did I decide to talk about the power of strength on this Father's Day? Well, when I was thinking about my dad, which I talked about him 2 years ago when I gave the Father's Day speech, but when I was thinking about the qualities from my dad that really stuck out for me, it was that quiet strength that he always displayed. You know, he was a military man. He was in the United States Army, and he was an infantryman in there. So it was very important for him, you know, to protect his country. And so, you know, I saw that strength in him, and even how he approached, you know, raising us, and me and my twin sisters right there. So glad she's here. But yeah, just that quiet strength he always displayed. I always felt safe and protected, you know, growing up, you know, with my parents and my dad always being that source of strength for me. And I'm glad that I can remember how, you know, he displayed that and how I can use that in my own life. You know, now for like 2.5 years, I've been a single mom of 2 young kids. And, you know, it's difficult for sure. So I'm so glad that I had that example from my dad of that strength, so my kids can, you know, look at me as that provider, protector, the power of strength for them. So I'm glad that he taught me that. Now, I always remember what Reverend Dan says about how we can use these 12 powers in both skillful and unskillful ways. And while my dad was really strong, my mom was sick, around the time I was, out of college and had started working. She had got sick, and my dad was there for her as that power of strength. He was there every time she was in the hospital. He was right there by her side, making sure everything was straight. And, he made sure she was good. But then, we found out that, he had his own health problems too, and he wasn't really taking care of himself, taking care of my mom. So he ended up transitioning before she did. And we were all shocked, because he was, making sure she was straight and not taking care of himself. And it just made me think about how sometimes I can find myself doing that, with my kids. I'll make sure they're straight, and sometimes I'll ignore my own problems. And it just made me think about what Reverend Dan said about how, if we're in an airplane and there's trouble and the oxygen masks come down, you must put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help your neighbor, because if you don't, then you're not going to be there to help your neighbor. So I have to remind myself of that constantly, that I need to take care of myself so I can be here for my children. So that's just one of the examples that I thought about when the power of strength came to my mind. I have another book. This is called Spiritual Hygiene by Ayanna Vanzit, and it's a recent book that she came out with. And this book has helped me a lot in my life, and how she talks about it basically came about because her daughter, Nisa, passed away recently. And so this book is kind of like spiritual hygiene compared to like personal hygiene. Make sure you're taking care of your spiritual life and cleansing yourself in that way. So it's a great book, and it's in the library if you want to check it out. I go in this copy too, so.
Library.
But yeah, Ayanna Vanzit has always been one of my favorite spiritual authors, because I can relate to her a lot, because she suffered in abusive relationships like I did. So, and she was able, to get out, and I did too. So this is a great book. She talks about unprocessed grief and how dangerous it can be, because she got to the point where she almost committed suicide because of unprocessed grief. So it's very important that we process our grief, get the help that we need. And she made one statement. She said, "Strength must bow down no matter who you are or how accomplished. Healing requires truth." So I like that quote.
Can you say it again? Yeah.
Strength must bow down no matter who you are or how accomplished. Healing requires truth. So yes, check this out. It's a big book. I know it's going to take a while. It took me a while to read it, but
it's in the library.
yes, it's in the library. I also donated another one of her books called Trust in God, Trust in Yourself, Trust in others. So, what are some ways that we can build spiritual strength? I know for me, the best way is to just, as Ricky Byers says, take a little time with God. We go into meditation and prayer with God to build strength. Like whatever problem you might have, just take it to God. I know me, I like guided meditations. So when I'm going into that time of prayer meditation, I like to start with a guided meditation. This book here has, This book here has guided meditations after each 12th power, and I'm going to include it for the meditation today for strength. So I start with a guided meditation, go into a time of prayer, share whatever might be on my mind, and then go into the silence and see what God reveals for me. So that's the way that I can build spiritual strength. Another way that I build spiritual strength is to listen to music. I love New Thought music, spiritual music, as most of you probably know. So when I think about it, I like listen to songs that will help me build strength. And when I thought about a song that helped me build strength the most, the song that came to mind was Make Me Stronger, and I believe they'll be singing it for the meditation song today. But I'm just going to sing a little bit of it right now. And I'm going to say it's from Ricky Byers and Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, but the version I like the most is the one by Rob McDonald III. That one is just like amazing. and his vocals are so amazing. And in the light of celebration of Black Music Month, I recommend you guys get "Make Me Stronger" by Rob McDonald. I believe it's on Bandcamp. So I recommend y'all get the CD. But there's one song on there called "Make Me Stronger," and he sings it excellent. And you can hear him most Sundays at Ricky Byers devotionals. I listen to that like after I leave here. That's like my second church. So I recommend that you guys get the CD. But I'm just gonna sing a little bit of it, and you'll hear it later. And it goes like this. My prayer today is for courage to be what the Holy Spirit intends for me. I want to be better and opening for God to make me stronger. That's just part of it. And finally, I came up with a little bit of rap for strength that I was gonna play for you or sing for you guys, or rap for you guys rather. So here goes. I wrote this, and it's just me drumming on the table. I'm gonna play it. Let's hope I can stay in the beat. Here we go. Strength is the power that's within us all. We turn it out within, we're about to fall. The power of strength will keep us safe throughout any obstacles that we may face. We give thanks for the power of strength every day, for we know that strength within everyone, okay. Male or female, the divine message is there, so remember that always and take care. Remember our fathers on this Father's Day, whether here or not, we know that the love will never end. I promise I won't quit my day job. I'll stick with the numbers. Okay.
We love you.
So recently I had to, go into that time of meditation to build that spiritual strength, because I was starting to have feelings of lack because, with the kitchen renovation and the donations, I was like, I want to contribute, but I feel like I can't contribute as much as I want to at this moment. But I had to, realize what Reverend Dan said. It doesn't matter about the amount, it's about the energy behind it. And so last week I contributed to the kitchen renovation. And if you're still thinking about it or it's in your mind, I just recommend you take that time with God and see, what you can contribute. Now the kitchen's important to me because, I help with hospitality. I recently started helping with hospitality because I feel like it helps me connect with my mom, who passed away as well a few years ago. And so she used to help in hospitality. A few times we did go to church. We didn't go that often when I was a kid, but when we did, she helped out in the kitchen and helped out with the kids. Those were the things she did. And so me helping the kids now and helping in the kitchen, makes me feel closer to my mom. So I'm so grateful that we get to renovate it and I get to have a nice fancy kitchen. And now we can move into the time for the affirmation. So I'll say it and then we can say it together. The strength of God in me gives me all the power I need to live the life I dream of. All right, let's say it together. The strength of God in me gives me all the power I need